All right, so our last advantage of remote work for employees that we're going to be talking about today is flexibility. Like I said, that one, I mean, it's right up there with the no commute for me. Being able to have the flexibility to decide, where you're going to live, where you're going to work from today. Yeah, I mean that's up there. That's up there for me.
It takes a little bit of the stress out of it. When you think of, like we mentioned before, if there's something, just a little something you need to do, you can easily do that. Now, I am curious because I know the flexibility in where they choose to live. I do know even some of the partially remote, I'd say some of the hybrids, I have seen some of the limits that they'll put. They're like, okay, like looking for candidates in this region or have to be able to commute to home office requirements around there. But even the flexibility to choose your work location to where working from home and kind of the hum of people around you and you wanted to go to a coffee shop or in your example of being able to assist with family, I think that is just a huge benefit.
Yeah, and I think you do bring up a good point about the choosing where to live too, because it's like even though there's no real requirement for me, when I was hired by IDOI Technologies, it was taken into consideration of where I lived to be able to help serve this area. So yeah, I would not personally be comfortable with just deciding to move somewhere without having a conversation with our boss, Chris, first. Like, I wouldn't just be like, oh, yeah, oh, hey, by the way, we're moving next week. And it's going to be, we're now going to be living in Washington State. Just wanting FYI, like I wouldn't feel right about that. At the same time, because we work for a really great company and a great person too, I wouldn't be scared to be like, hey, we're considering moving other places. How do you feel about that? But yeah, I do feel like the right thing to do would be to talk to your employer if they hired you and you were in a specific location. Even though there may be some flexibility in that, I do think the right thing to do would be to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, because you might run into labor laws and different, because you've got different state income tax, like all states are not the same. So that would definitely probably play into that.
And then, another aspect of the flexibility, which is probably my favorite part of it, is the being able to just tailor my schedule depending on what's going on. Is it a doctor appointment? Is it something that, I need to have somebody come look at something at the house that needs to be done? Or, something needs to be done on the vehicle. We mentioned I like to go to the gym, and I like to do it right in the middle of the day. So it's like, usually, and again, it's flexible. So sometimes I move it around, like I've talked about before, but it's like, yeah, I like being able to be like, oh, I'm going to go pop out to the gym for an hour, and then come back to work. I mean, it's just those things. Like to me, I value that that being able to tailor my schedule very high. Like even if and again, I realize like just because it's remote work doesn't mean that's the case. I had a friend whose husband, like he was a remote worker, but it was very strict. Like it was very monitored and very strict. So he didn't have the ability to do that type of thing. And yeah, that would be like if I ever went to work somewhere else, that would be a really high consideration for me of how flexible is the schedule. Um, Even if they did offer remote work, I would want to be well aware of what the policies were and how they were conducted.
And it depends on your what your role and your function are. Was he some type of call center by any chance?
Think it was a call center type situation. Even if he wanted to use the bathroom, like he had to basically be like, after this call's over, and then I think it was even like, it wasn't even like, okay, well, just let us know when you're back. I think it was like, okay, when you're done with that call, the 10-minute clock will start or whatever it was all of it was everything was very timed.
That's common in I think in the call center environments. I had a friend that worked in one. Everything was data driven and timed from the clock in to the amount of time serving calls. So yeah, I could see that that would translate to remote as
I've
well.
seen a couple funny videos about it was with a lady that was remote working and she had her computer like on one of those mobile and like the funny scenarios she kept putting herself like she's basically moving around her whole house doing the call center. Yeah, when I heard the story about my friend, when I first saw that, it's like, okay, but it's like, oh, it's probably a situation where she has to constantly be on the clock. And so she kind of set her situation up so she could move around her whole house
Mhm.
while she did the call center.
I was looking at another one of the quotes that we had in our notes. A lot of times when we discuss this, I reflect back on like the pandemic, kind of the aftermath or what it showed to us. And, sometimes it seems like that was just a blur. Was that just a bad dream that happened there? One of the things that it did do, because we've been working in the video conferencing space and distance learning space long enough to where we knew what was possible with some of the technologies. The one thing the pandemic really did, and that was the quote here, of that it became an enabler for more flexible working on a wider scale. Without the pandemic, Zoom would not be the household word that it is. We wouldn't be like, I've described my creative group that I facilitate. The range of us in that group goes from mid 30s to in their 80s, and we meet on Zoom. And, it's what we used to have to teach people how to do. It is common. It is just another modality. That is one of the benefits, I think, that will last after the pandemic because it became something everyone's fluent with and provided a flexibility. Some groups that if you really looked at it, you're going to be able to extend some types of work you'll be able to extend. Because I have a friend who sees a local therapist, and the lady is, I want to say she's maybe late 80s. She's still working. She only does telehealth style of work. She logs into Zoom and conducts her sessions there so you can get access to some wisdom and, longevity that you can't have if you're having to get in your car and drive to a location every day.
It's interesting. It was like pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, because I can remember people being like, "Oh, when I would tell them what I did, and they'd be like, "Oh, it would be neat to be able to work from home," and yeah, and the pandemic basically exposed everybody to it, whether they wanted to or not. Yeah, and I think that's why people gravitate more towards hybrid because if everybody's being honest, there are just some things you would rather do in person and some things you would rather do remotely. If you're able to do, if you can go either way, there's certain things that you're like, yeah, I would just rather do that remotely or rather do that in person. And so being able to have that, seeing it for yourself and not somebody just being like, yeah, that's not going to work. Be like, well, why won't it? There's a bunch of reasons why it won't work. That's not going to work. And then being able to experience it for yourself and be like, well, I can see why somebody, and again, me being somebody that's in the field, I can understand when somebody's like, that's not going to work. It's like, yeah, with this crowd, yeah, you're right. It ain't going to work with this. If that's going to be if that's the boss or you got these people on your team, unless they change their attitude about certain things, it's probably not going to work well. I get that, but it's like it's always possible depending on, how it's being facilitated, how it's being structured. Yeah, and it is interesting, now that people have had a taste where it's like, okay, when they're looking for another, like I just said, like if I how to go look for a different job. If I went to somebody else, it would be a high priority for me to know how that operates. And it would, if they were like, yeah, we don't believe in remote work, it'd be like, we might as well stop talking because that's that's fine if that's your belief, but it's like, I'm not interested in working for somebody that doesn't see any value in remote work.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a benefit for organizations that can offer that. Because I think when you look at the total package, if you had comparable salaries, comparable benefits, and one of them was for every day in office and the other one was more open and flexible, I think that would be an easy decision.
I know we'll get into more of this in our next conversation where we focus on the company advantages of remote work. You'll see the statistics. I mean, businesses that are not offering flexibility, businesses that are requiring people to be in the office, people don't want to work there. Now they might be able to keep some of the people that are already there, because to be honest, if somebody's like, I'm 28 years into this company. I only got 2 more years left. All right, I'll do it. But if you got somebody that's like, can I do this for 20 more years? Can I work under these conditions for 20 more years? It's like, no, I'm going to find a way to get out of there. And then when those people leave and they're like trying to be like, okay, well, we need to, we lost 10 people, but hey, guess what? Who cares? Like, we got AI. We don't need 10 people. We just need 2 people. It's like, well, good luck finding 2 people that even want to work for you. Now you have a reputation and people are going to know and they're going to be like, yeah, no, I don't care how much the salary is. That's going to be painful. So this closes us out on our conversation on the employee advantages of remote work. So what do you think? What do you think about what we shared? Are there any aspects we didn't mention that you're curious about? Let us know. And like I said, in our next conversation, which will be our final planned conversation in this series, we're going to look at that other side of the coin with the company advantages of remote work. So, till next time.